Right, let's expand the conversation. African Affairs commentator Nixon Katembo joins us for more. Nixon, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. The original panel included no representation from the SADC, even though it has a major stake in the outcome, with many troops still trapped in Eastern DRC. What impact do you think former President of South Africa, Kgalema Motlanthe's appointment, will have on this panel?
I think his objectiveness, he is known to being a no-nonsense man, and he has approached the issue without really taking side, unlike in some quarters that we have seen people talking about this issue in a partisan manner without necessarily showing that they are being partisan. And for Kgalema Motlanthe, I think he's a very good choice for the job. And I hope that he will be impactful along as other panelists to discuss the issues of the DRC.
Because we know that initially the SADC leaders were unhappy at what they saw as a bias favoring the East African community, of which Rwanda is a member of. What kind of dynamics did such a composition present in its efforts of resolution?
I think the dynamics are very clear, that you have to have both regional bodies to get involved in terms of resolving this issue of the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I should mention, however, that the likes of former President Obasanjo is no stranger to the issue of the DRC having been a part of the negotiation between the first M23 rebel movement. But I doubt whether he still have that particular impact, because afterwards his in and out of Kigali has raised some questions of his own partiality in terms of resolving the conflict in the DRC. And I think there have been a question raised about his own impartiality in the issue when it comes to the issue of the conflict in the DRC. So such was the case of the appointment by East Africa of former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Haile Mariam Desalegn, who ironically lead the institute that was opened by Paul Kagame in Kigali. And one wonder whether he will be objective enough on the issue of the DRC having Rwanda as a belligerent to the conflict. However, I think the appointment of a former president of Ethiopia kind of lift up that aspect of a question raised against Haile Mariam Desalegn. And then you have Catherine Samba-Panza of Central African Republic. Although the Rwandan peacekeeping forces were in the Central African Republic during his time, but she has not. I mean, she has not been involved that much with the Rwandan government, unlike his. Her predecessor. Her successor. Felix Twadera, who is the current president of CAR. So you have to look at all those issues in terms of understanding how the panel is composed, but also the regional dynamics, the different interests. I should mention, however, that in my own analysis and having followed the issue of the DRC, the lack of sincerity on the part that are involved in the conflict in DRC. From a historical perspective, you would recall that the NRA, National Resistance Army, was fighting in Uganda, of which Paul Kagame was part of, taking over the Ugandan government against Milton Obote. They were negotiating in Nairobi. At the same time, the war continued in the central Uganda, Luero, taking Museveni to power in 1986. And you see the trend since then, when RPF formed in 1990 to take over power in Kigali, the discussion happened in Arusha to have the truce. Unfortunately, the war was continuing and Habyarimana was shot down on return from Arusha. And you see the same aspect continuing currently, where the lack of sincerity in terms of what is going in terms of the diplomacy is not being taken seriously. And on a part of the DRC, you see President Tshisekedi being wishy-washy. Today he's in Angola, tomorrow he's in Qatar, The other day he's in Washington to discuss a mineral deal with the Trump administration. The other day he's in France. So one wonder where is the strategic leadership when it comes to the DRC? And I think those are the dynamics that the panel should look at on the part of the DRC, on the part of Rwanda, and on the part of the historical perspective that has presented itself in terms of the regional dynamics, both in East Africa and in the SADC region.
You mentioned Angola, and we know the country has withdrawn as a mediator in the DRC matter. What impact do you think the withdrawal will have?
I think the Angolan process are very crucial because already there was discussions going on and there was an agreement due to be signed, of which President Paul Kagame renegated in attending the meeting, and therefore the pushing the collapse of those discussions. The question is, how does those discussions have happened, and to what extent Angola did push those discussions? And now President Joao Lorenzo, being the chairperson of the African Union, and we understand it is an African Union-led peace mission in terms of mandating the regional body to have the conflict dialogue in the DRC undertaken by regional bodies. And I think the Angolan process are very crucial to these discussions and to the panel itself to take from where the Angolan discussions have been taken, and as well as the Nairobi process, which were led by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and marrying that into precedents that were set at the Sun City Peace Accord, which was inked here in South Africa in northwest the city of Sun City, as well the Pretoria Accord, the Lusaka I and Lusaka II during the First Congo War. And one have to revisit all these discussions to understand what really have refused to let the Congo set off on a path for peace, and let this continued mayhem continue in the DRC, as leading up to mass slaughter of civilians, some of which are not really talked about and taken care of as it should be.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this developing story. African Affairs commentator Nixon Katembo expanding there and giving us some analysis as we scrutinize the representation from SADC when it comes to the efforts that are underway to ensure peace in the DRC.